Hello and welcome to the Free Dominion Show. My name is Freeman Singirankabo, and thank you so very much for joining our broadcast today. Those of you joining us, especially if you're joining us live from the social media, welcome. We are so glad that you could time out of your busy schedule and join us today. Please be sure to share our program, subscribe and follow to our channels or web pages wherever you found them on the website. Even be sure to come and join us live as it happens here in the studio via Zoom. That's one of our special treats to all of you joining us today, just like we do it every single day here at our Free Dominion show. I want to go right ahead and give you a huge welcome. All of you guys joining us worldwide, whether you're joining us via television, via radio station or social media, welcome. As always, we are going to be talking to you guys today, frankly, boldly, and with no apologies. And I want to let each and every one of you know that our conversation is always driven by the spirit of truth, love, and trust. And these are the benchmarks by which we would love each and every one of you to measure both the integrity and the validity of the content that we are going to be sharing with you today. We welcome all your comments, feedbacks, and anything that you would like to pass on to us directly, either live as it happens here at the studio, or whether you can go straight to our website and leave us a note, leave us an email, leave us a text message, or what have you, whichever that you prefer. So for those of you who do not know how to reach out to us, you can find us on the website www.info@afridominion.com. info@afridominion.com. Our main email is info@afridominion.com. info@afridominion.com. Be sure to also subscribe or join our private group. It is a Telegram. It is a Telegram group. Do remember to join it. Come and find us out there. You will absolutely find the like minds, those who share the same value, those who share the same culture, those who share the same destination, those who share what we do here at Free Dominion Show, even at Free Dominion all together. So, and with that in mind, most of you are not familiar with this show, Free Dominion. It's a brand new show that just been launched this January 2022, and its purpose is... My apologies, someone was talking to me. Its purpose for the show is we like to inspire. The show's main purpose is to inspire, to advocate, and to encourage a complete and total dominion of the entire Africa, one country at a time, by its sons, daughters, and African descendants, all in the interest of African people, primarily, and then the rest of the world afterwards. And essentially, the word Free Dominion, it's a concept, it's an idea, which literally drives the idea, which drives all of you young people. It inspires you, it advocates, and it encourages each and every one of you, all of us, sons, daughters, African and African descendants, even friends of Africa, to take back the control, to take back the leadership, to take back the governments, to take back the complete dominion of Africa by its sons, daughters, and African descendants, all in the interest of Africa, primarily, and then the rest of the world afterwards. Why do we start saying it like that? Some of you have sent out some messages saying, hey, are you trying to be supreme to the rest of the world? No, our house is out of order. We are simply trying to get our house in order as Africans. The same way in your respective countries, you tend to seek after the interest of your own affairs as a country, as a people, as regions. So even African themselves, as a continent, we need to get our affairs in order without the involvement or the influence of the outsiders. As countries, we also need to get our own country affairs together. As region, as villages, as community, we still need to get our affairs in order without looking at the interest primarily of those outside of those little small cocoons or small regions, so to speak. So that's why we say that what we're doing here today, what we're doing here at Afrique Dominion Show, what we do with Afrique Dominion is to inspire, encourage, and advocate for a complete Africa control, Africa management, the full dominion of Africa by the sons, daughters, and African descendants. Are we together? And that's what we can, that's what you will find out of these shows each and every one of the days that you find us on air. And in particular, given that the broader scope of the idea and the show, we have taken it upon ourselves to break it down into 5 different themes, which corresponds to the 5 days we do a live broadcast. And this live broadcast is usually between 12 Eastern Standard Time or Washington, D.C. time, all the way to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. On Mondays, we get to talk about the eradication of refugees and persons of or stateless person. My mind is going blank. So on Monday, we get to talk about the eradication of refugees, African refugees, and African stateless persons. There are so many people who do not have papers in their own country. Even, I was born in Rwanda. Even in Rwanda right now, there are people who do not have the papers. And these are Rwandese citizens. The government, or the so-called government, will not give them the papers they need. The identities, the very basic papers that allows you to travel, to transact, to do business. So we want to be able to make sure that every single stateless person who happens to be African, that we get to know what's up with you, what kind of situation you're in, how can we help you to better your situation. Same thing with refugees. We want to know where each and every one of the refugees are located. Right now, you have refugees that have been, who have been stripped of the refugee status, or who are living in various countries undocumented, because that's how the United Nations has designated all the hosting countries. They have literally taken off some of the documentation. Points again, or case in point, Rwandese refugees in various African countries. I was going to say that most of them, there are a great number of them who have lost their refugee status and they still live in these countries. They are still refugees, however, they have no status. Why? Because the government of Rwanda has lobbied, has spoken to these respective governments and told them to remove the status of these refugees in the interest of not giving them any money, in the interest of forcing them, forced repatriation. So on Mondays, we get to talk about that. We get to explore and we get to figure out what can we do as Africans to actually get rid of this whole situation altogether. Not patch it up, but get rid of it. On Tuesday, we talk about the Constitution, Law, and Policy Review and Implementations. Again, African countries, they have one of the most beautiful constitutions. These countries, they have the best constitutions written on piece of papers. But that's just as far as they go, written on a piece of papers. The majority of these constitutions are never implemented, where they actually have added value to an average citizen. So when I have an opportunity to review this constitution, these laws and these policies, see whether they actually seek out the interests of the majority or interests of the citizens, not even just the majority. Whatever that works, we encourage it. Whatever that doesn't work, we actually get rid of it. We work together and we get rid of it. On Wednesdays, we talk about our testimony, and we get to have an opportunity and the privilege to write our own history, our own way. So you get to be the one in the driving seat instead of someone else who happens to be like a government that has won or that has taken the power, either through coup d'etat or through some other form of regime changes that we have come to accustomed throughout African countries. On Thursdays, we get to talk about the spirit of dominion. What is the spirit of dominion? Remember, we just started saying that Africans must be able to take full and a complete dominion of Africa. Being able to take a full charge of Africa and African resources, African affairs, the whole entire continent, all the countries, all the regions, all the villages, and so on. On Thursdays, we get to break it down and we get to take specific cases out of it. On Friday, we talk about current event and its impact on Africa and African people. This could be something that's being spoken either through mainstream media or something you've never heard of, so long as we believe that it has a huge added value to the African people. And with that in mind, I give you guys, all of you, a huge welcome. Come and hang out with us. Come and have a saying. And a huge shout out to those of you joining us live from social media, in particular those of you who are straight on YouTube and those of you who are straight on Facebook. Welcome, 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 and come over and have your own saying throughout the conversation. And those of you who are bold enough, I invite you to come to the studio and also have a saying. By the way, we encourage you. I encourage you, and we keep on encouraging each and every one of you, brothers and sisters, to make sure, practice to speak up on your own behalf of your own communities, on behalf of your nations. Speak up. Don't you ever allow your voice to become voiceless. When they are all, when we already have people who are by default voiceless because of the circumstances that they are living in today. So with that in mind, I want to jump right in the conversation that we have today. And the theme of today, as you know, it's dominion, Thursday's dominion, and the spirit of dominion to be specific. And the conversation, the focus of today is going to talk about assassinations of African leaders and how much longer before we can protect ourselves. And that's pretty much the main driving topic. And within that main driving topic, I want to ask each and every one of you, can you imagine the assassination investigation of JFK or Paul Doumer, President Paul Doumer, being carried out in Africa and by the African citizen or by the African courts? Are you now hungry for self-government? That's what I want to talk about today. You may be wondering, what's up with this whole conversation? The topic is broad. Freeman, what's up with this? I want to let you know that today, Africa today we have 54 countries, soon to be 56 countries in the entire Africa. I wonder if any of you can guess how many assassinations that have taken place on a level of leaders of Africa, or how many presidents or how many African leaders have been assassinated throughout. And also I want to put a quick disclaimer. I did the research, but it may not necessarily be the entire list of my research. If I have missed out any of important leader who's been assassinated, let me know through the chat, because I want you guys to just get a chance to see what's been happening and what's happening with our own people today. The involvement of the outsiders having a heavy hand in the assassination of our leaders today and in the past. So how can we protect ourselves today and tomorrow? So that if you chose, if you have chosen a leader, he or she doesn't have to be assassinated, because the interests they are seeking again aren't representing the outsider's interest. So while we're claiming that we want to be able to ensure or to fight for our own interest, we need to be able to secure our own selves as well, so that the consequences of us securing our own interest doesn't get to become the same result as this president has ever experienced. So what am I saying here? How many assassinations has taken place in Africa? on the level of presidents, or how many presidents have been killed. Assassination is getting killed, young people. It's just a fancy word or a dressed up word so that you don't hear that it's someone who's been murdered or killed, someone who get killed. So these presidents have been killed. So far, I have identified 25 presidential assassination in Africa. 25 presidential assassination in Africa. In these assassinations, most of it don't even have a paper trail. Meaning, someone as big as a president of a country, of a nation, gets to be assassinated and there is no investigation. And that investigation, if it even takes place, it's being managed by the outsiders. Who are the outsiders? Most of the main big five nations that I have told you about. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, Soviet Union, and China. Most of those countries are usually involved. There are many more. It is not just those five main countries, but a lot of these assassinations, when they take place, you find that those major nations, they usually have some sort of doing behind the scene. Check it out yourself. And frankly speaking, we're not beating around the bushes about it. So, I asked you guys if assassination of African leaders is so cheap, so insignificant, that now one single African or African citizen has any concern that they can figure out, hey, what happened here? In this country, in the United States, we have had 4 successful assassinations of presidents. Only 4. Since 1776. For this span of 240 something years, 46 years, 4 presidents have been successfully assassinated. In France, 2 assassinations. In the span of what? 200 years and plus, I think. Africa, in just a short time period, within what? Since like the 60s, up until today, 25 of them. And the investigation of these presidents, classified most of the time, or being taken or being conducted outside of the countries. I'll give you the names, because that's what we really want to get into. But even with that, I did ask you, can you imagine an assassination of JFK? JFK is one of the American president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was an American president who was assassinated in 1963. He was the last president to be assassinated on the soil of the United States. Now, his investigation has been classified over 30 plus years. Over 35 years. Now, another one of the presidents who was assassinated is a French president. And his name was Paul Doumer. By the way, I have not been able to find some images, good images that I can that we can project. So we might just cheat a little bit, if possible, and try to share some images, because sometimes having images also go along, so that you guys can have an opportunity to put a face, to put someone's face to the name or to the conversation that we are sharing with you guys. So I will do my best to share some images with you where possible, so you can have a chance to actually get to see that. And if they can also help me where I cannot find any images, if they do have some images, I would appreciate if they also do share with you guys. And with that in mind, I I am trying to find the first image. Kennedy in Port Doumer. I want you guys to be able to see them if it's possible. Let me see if I can do something quickly. John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy. And John F. Kennedy is an American president, as I'm telling you here. Guys, can you share my screen, please, so they can actually get a chance to see it? Yeah, that would be good if you can share it right quick. And again, I am truly hoping that we don't run into a snag while we're sharing with you guys some of these images. So John F. K, I think they're showing him there. Yeah, look down there. You get to see him. That's him right there. That's one of the American president who was assassinated in 1963. His death has been classified for 30 plus years. And you can imagine if African themselves and African courts went to the United States in 1963 and took over the file of President Kennedy. Can you imagine a single African country, taking over the United States investigation over the death of the number one chief citizen of the nation having been assassinated? And I submit to you that it's a hell no. You would never find an African court taking charge of an investigation of an American president who has been assassinated, or any attempt of an American president that may seek harm to any one of these presidents. It's never going to happen. Never. Those four presidents, I don't know if I mentioned them, the four American presidents who have been assassinated. The first one who's ever been assassinated, it's President Lincoln. And President Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. Like I told you guys, I'm gonna cheat a little bit, or just show you the main page. We can use the wikis. We can use the wikis so you guys can get to see it. That's Lincoln right there. So he was the first American president who was assassinated in 1865. Now one single African nation or African court has ever had a hand in the investigation of American president from President Lincoln. The next president who was assassinated, that's James A. Garfield. James Garfield also was assassinated, and he was assassinated in 1881. Not one single African court, not one single African investigator ever touched, nor will there be any African court ever investigate his death or any attempt. The third president, the third United States president who's ever been assassinated, who has been assassinated, is President William McKinley. And William McKinley, that's him right there, if you guys are seeing. William McKinley too is one of those other presidents who's ever been assassinated in the United States. Not one single African court has ever had a hand in it. Not one single African nation, even a president, ever had any privilege to know what has happened, what happened to the assassination. And then lastly, but not the least, John F. Kennedy, that I was just showing you briefly afterwards. He was assassinated also in 1963. I did show you John F. Kennedy briefly after. And for those of you who needs to see him, that's him right there, John F. Kennedy. That's Kennedy right there. Why am I saying this? There is always a method to the madness. So 4 American presidents assassinated. Africa as a continent never had a hand in it, nor did they ever run any investigation towards it. Let's go to France. In France, only 2 presidents have actually had the tragedy of being assassinated, and the first one was Sadi Carnot. And Carnot is one of those president back in 1887. And that's him right here. That's his official photograph. So he was also assassinated in 1894. The second one to be assassinated was Paul Doumer, as I was telling you about. Paul Doumer, and that's him right there, Paul Doumer. And again, with these two assassinations, not one single African country, not one single African court has ever had a hand in it, never ran any investigation, never knew what's going on with it, never had the privilege, nor will they ever have the privilege of knowing what was in those files. Let's go to African presidents who have been assassinated. Remember, in France, 2. In the United States, 4. In the span of 200 plus years. Since 1963. Actually, let's start, I think, the first African nation, with the exception of South Africa. I believe only South Africa was a nation earlier on. Was like a republic. The rest of the nation seeked or sought their independence sometimes in the 50s and 60s. The majority of African received their independences in 1960s. And since 1960s, multiple assassination and attempt have taken place in Africa. Multiple attempt and successful assassinations have taken place. And so let's start with, remember I told you 25 presidents assassinated because their interests differed, or their interest was in direct conflict with the outsiders' interest. Let's be real, let's talk seriously. So, meaning you elect a president, you want him to be your president, and then he gets shot. However, he gets killed because the interest of the people isn't the kind of interest the outsiders have in mind. Are we together? So the very first president that I found out to have been assassinated is the Togolese president, President Sylvanus Olympio. That's him right there. That's his official wiki image. And he was assassinated in 1963. The next president who was assassinated is President of Nigeria, the Nigerian president, John Aguiyi Ironsi. That's him right there, aka Johnson Aguiyi Ironsi. He was also assassinated in 1966. Why? The interest of the Nigerian was not very worthy to come before the interest of the outsiders. The next president to be assassinated was the Somalia president, 1969, Abdirashid Ali Sharmake. Assassinated also in 1969. President of Somalia. Next to be assassinated, it was a president of Zanzibar, Abeid Amani Karume. Let me see if I can find his image as well. That's him right there. Assassinated in 1972. The next president who got assassinated in 1975, Richard Ratsimandrava. I hope I'm not butchering His Excellency's name. Richard Ratsimandrava from Madagascar. Also assassinated. Why? Because the interest of the Madagascarians was not very valuable, not very important when it comes to the interest of the global or the outsider's interest. The next president to be assassinated was the president of Chad, Francois Ngarta Tombarbaye. Hopefully, I'm not killing these names. Francois was also assassinated in 1975. That's him right there. Let me see if we can find a nice wiki image of his. That's him right there. Also assassinated in 1976. Another president of Nigeria. His name was Murtala Rama Mohammed Murtala Rama. Let's see if we can find his image. That's him right there, Murtala Mohammed. And as you can see, most of these guys, the president, are military men. I forgot to mention. Not all, but most of them are military, or they have some sort of military background. Again, why did he get assassinated? The interest of the Nigerian was not as important as the interest of the outsiders. The next one to be assassinated, the president of Congo Brazzaville, in 1977. His name was Marie Ngouabi. That's him right there, Marie Ngouabi. Him too got assassinated in 1977. The next president to be assassinated, the president of Ethiopia, Teferi Bante Teferi, in 1977. That's him right there. Also assassinated. Why? The interests of the Ethiopian people were not as important as the interests of the outsider. And then in 1978, president of Comoros, but he had already left office, Ali Soili. He was also the president. Although he didn't get killed in office, he left office and then he got assassinated. That's him right there, Ali Soili. And then moving on, in 1981, Egyptian president Anwar el-Sadat, assassinated in 1981. And when I say these guys, they get killed left and right. Why? The interests of the Egyptians, the Egyptian people, were not as important as the outsiders' interest. Next to it, Liberia. President of Liberia also gets assassinated that same year in 1981. William Richard Tolbert. Also, he took the assassination. He was assassinated as well in 1981. He was the president of Liberia, and that's him right there. Wait, where's my mouse? Right there. Also assassinated in 1981. Another president that we oftentimes talk about, Thomas Sankara, in 1987. Thomas Sankara was the president of Burkina Faso. He was also assassinated. Why? Because the interest of the people was not as important as the interest of the outsider. African, listen to what I'm saying. In just a short time period, every single one of those idealistic presidents, those who wanted to actually help their own people, they had to die because they dared come forward seeking the interest of their people or of their own country, first and foremost, before the interest of the outsiders. And the outsiders, the big five, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Soviet Union or Russia, and China. Those are the big fives that have been meddling in the African affairs for centuries. Again, frankly speaking, and this is a knowledge that is public, by the way. It's no longer secret. But even with the secrets, it's not going to be secret unless it has a solution to your problem as Africans. You got to be able to go and seek it. So Thomas Sankara killed or assassinated in 1987. He was the president of Burkina Faso. And next to him, in 1989, the president of Comoros, Ahmed Abdallah, also assassinated. And that's him right there. Why? Because of the interest of the Comoros was just not as important as the interest of the outsiders. And every time I mention of the word outsiders, I am referring to these big developed nations. Same year, 1989, another president of Liberia. Can you imagine? So far, two Liberian president, two Nigerian president assassinated. I mean, when would this be over? So another Liberian president assassinated in 1989. That's none other than Samuel Kenyon Doe. Let me show you his image as well. That's him right there, Samuel K. Doe, assassinated. And oftentimes, they get to be dehumanized before they are assassinated. In 1992, Algeria president becomes assassinated. Mohamed Boudiaf also gets to be assassinated. Why? Because his interest, or the interest of the people that he was seeking for, was just not as good of an interest compared to what the outsiders were looking for. So, consequently, he also ends up on the assassination list. In 1993, in Burundi, President Melchior Ndadaye gets to be assassinated. Those of you who don't know Melchior, that's him right there. He was badly assassinated. He was chopped up. For those of you who don't know, Burundi is right next to Rwanda, right where I was born. He gets to be killed. Next year, or I should say a few months afterwards, the president who replaced him also gets assassinated. Why? Because the interests of the Burundian were just not as important as the interest of the outsiders. Keep in mind, who are the outsiders? The Big Five. Primarily, there are many, but the Big Five. That's him right there, Cyprien Ntaryamira, also gets assassinated. 1994. The same day, same hour, same minute, Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana also gets to be assassinated. 1994. Both of them were in the same plane, in the same airplane that was shut down. 2 missiles, pow, pow. Why? The interests of the Rwandese people and the Burundian people were just not as important as the outsiders' interest. This, you will never get to hear of it in a regular classroom, young people. Why? Because they don't want you to know the impact. They don't want you to know what's happening, so that not only you can be infuriated by that, but also so you can actually figure out how is it that you get to have so many assassinations in so little time. No wonder there is an instability, because the nations that pretend to want to help you are the same nations seeking, toppling, meddling, causing these assassinations. Moving on, 1999, President of Niger gets assassinated. It is none other than President Ibrahim Barre Menassara. I'm hoping that I'm not butchering his name as well. His Excellency. He gets also killed. Why? Because the interest of the Nigerians was just not as good as the interest of the outsiders. 2 years afterwards, Zairean president, or Congo Kinshasa president, or the DRC, the Democratic Republic president, Laurent Désiré Kabila, gets assassinated as well. Also shot. Why? Because the interest of the Congolese was just not as important as the interest of the outsiders. Guys, the list goes on. The next one to become assassinated in 2009, President of Guinea-Bissau, João Bernardo Vieira. I hope I'm not butchering His Excellency's name. That's him right there. He gets assassinated. 2 years afterwards, Libyan president gets to be assassinated, Muammar Gaddafi. And those of you who know Muammar Gaddafi, with all that he's done for the African people, also becomes assassinated. And you know who's done it? On television. It was shown. Moving on 10 years afterwards, Haitian president becomes assassinated. Jovenel Moïse killed in his home in literally last year. That's when he was assassinated, in July. Most of you never heard of that because it's not something that you either are interested in or you're just not even thinking about it. The regime change, the Haitian interest no longer valued, the outsiders' interest right back on the table. And same year, the Chadian president also gets assassinated. President Idriss Déby. Last year, also he was assassinated. Idriss Déby was killed also in last year, 2021. And those of you who heard his death, he said that he was fighting with the rebels. Now, all these assassinations, the investigation have been nothing but sketchy investigations. Most of it spearheaded by the outsiders. And I want you to ask yourself, why in the world would the outsider take a lead on an investigation of an African country or an African president? I want you to think of that, young people. From 1963 to 2021, investigation becomes spearheaded or led by the outsiders. Check it out. Why in the world would an outsider be in charge of your own affairs? Tell you how to do it, when to do it, and how to report it. In Rwanda, they say never ask the teeth of a chicken when the chicken's mouth is open. It's like a rhetoric. It's like a rhetoric statement where they're telling you that why is it that you have the boldness of asking how many teeth a chicken has when you have its mouth open. So these nations have been leading investigations of African leaders, the assassination of these African leaders, because they have had a hand in it. They do not want to be found to be guilty. Consequently, all you Africans and the rest of the world, you pretty much admit you get the Kool-Aid. Whatever it is you are told, you say thank you, sir, and you keep it moving. And guys, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Now, is it fair that the United States president gets assassinated and you cannot get anywhere close to it? Multiple attempts on these presidents are there day to day. You will never have the preview. You will never have the privileges. You will never have access to what's happening. Ever, ever, ever. So why is it okay for these nations to come and tell you what to do after your own people, your own leaders are being assassinated, and oftentimes with their hand in it. And they have the boldness of imposing you, the people, imposing you to let them handle the investigation. With that in mind, remember I told you it's been since 1994 to today. It's going to be almost 28 years. 2 presidents assassinated in Rwanda. Two presidents. President Habyarimana of Rwanda and President Cyprien Ntaryamira. I did show you the pictures a little bit ago. 20 years ago, they become assassinated, or they get assassinated. The French quickly grab the investigation. The United Nations, they all scramble. Run quickly on scene, take the black box of the plane that has just been shut down by 2 missiles from the Russian Federation, and the investigation gets to be taken under the closet for 28 years. Now one single Rwandese person openly say, hey, this investigation needs to be openly conducted, publicly conducted, with nothing classified. Why? Because we know that there's never been a single airplane that has an accident and a black box. That's the little recording device that tells you what's been happening throughout that airplane. If for the interest of the people, the black box can tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, why for the past 28 years, this little black box has never left the closet that the United Nations, that the French people, and the co-conspirators have put that box in? Depending on who's in power, these nations, they have a way to flip-flop. They have a way to manage the lies that they're telling the people. Frankly speaking, guys, there's no need to beat around the bushes about it. Remember, we were the children who suffered the consequences of not only the shutdown of those 2 planes, the genocide that also came afterwards consequently, both destabilizations of Burundi and Rwanda simultaneously, and up until today in 2022, January 20th, you cannot ask what has happened and you get a clear answer. Why? Because the perpetrators, both inside and outside of Rwanda, inside and outside of Burundi, are still living, are still strong and in power. And we don't have the boldness to request justice, the truth, the whole, full justice. It gets better. The French are still in charge of the investigation. And this coming 25th next month, there's a court date where the families of those departed ones in the plane crash have submitted a case. There is an active case, and that's the investigation into the attack. So next month, I think it's on the 15th of February, if my memory serves me correct, I believe the French court, the highest court in French, will actually have a hearing. I believe it may even be a final hearing on the whole fiasco of the assassination of President Habyarimana and Cyprien Ntaryamira and the rest of the people who were in the same plane. Not one single person want to take responsibility of what has happened. Not one single person. And since their death, since their assassinations, more than, like 3 millions in Rwanda plus 12 millions in the DRC, plus a few 100,000 in the neighboring countries have died. So let's say roughly about 16 million people died as a consequence of the shutdown of the two sitting president, whose investigation has been completely chalked and buried. And not one single African, let me actually say, not one single African leader as a president, not one single African judicial committee or a court has had the opportunity, the audacity, the boldness of figuring out how in the world two presidents gets assassinated and the investigation is laid by someone else outside. Now, also for disclaimer purposes, the RPF, who happens to be the rebel who were fighting with the government, they took it upon themselves also to run an investigation. Remember, you are giving a suspect to be the lead of an investigation that he or she is involved in. Where else have you heard of that? Where else have you heard a suspect, him or herself, taking the lead on the killing of the person that you are being accused of killing? Neither the United Nations nor those 5 big nations have had the audacity, have had the boldness of saying, you know what, you cannot also be a part of the investigation given that you are the prime suspect in the death or the assassination of these two sitting presidents. And of course, given how amazing as Africans we are, we've been pretty much quiet about it. Now, why am I saying all of these, young people? Even you older people. Today is a new dawn. For every act, for every situation that you have an opportunity to have a saying, to have a part in, to take action on behalf of your people, and you fail to do that, the consequences not only come to you, but those consequences also go to your loved ones and your offspring. And it can also spill over beyond your nation, which is what we are seeing in our case as Rwandese people. Can you ask why right now most of these African countries, they still have instability? Why is it so hard for you as African? Why is it so hard for all of us as African to protect our own country or to protect our own countries? Why is it so hard to protect your own leaders? Why is it so hard to protect the very thing that's actually protecting your own nation, the law, the leadership? Why is it so hard to see that, hey, there are hands in your own affairs, outside hands to be specific? We got a problem, guys, and we have to be able to fix the problem. And this problem is not going to be fixed by those of you who are still ducking, who cannot speak up, who cannot boldly speak, who cannot truthfully speak, who cannot beat around the bushes. So I dare you guys, I dare you to speak the truth, to frankly speak. I dare you to find the solution to your own problems, both inside and outside of your nations. It's imperative that we actually reach that maturity as a people. If you cannot look after the best interest of your nation, if you cannot look after the best interest of your community, if you cannot look after the best interest of your families, who is going to look after those interests if not you? Can you honestly say that outsiders are going to look after those interests? I submit to you that it's a hell no. It's not going to happen. So it's very sad that Africa continues to be ran like a stepchild who actually is being treated like, wow, I can't even find an expression that would actually communicate what I feel about that. Africa, it's that kid who is in his or her own inheritance, however, is treated like a beggar inside of your own resources. Why is it that the outsider get to have prime take out of every single African resources before African themselves? From natural resources to social resources to human resources to brain resources, they get the prime take in or take out. All natural resources have to be taken out, stolen from Africa. In any way they are disguised, and they get to be taken outside of Africa, they get processed, and then they get to be sent right back in Africa for a fee, 1,000 to 10,000% higher than what you could have gotten in before it has left your own nation. What's wrong with this picture, guys? Let me throw this away, even though it wasn't part of the conversation. You have noticed how the Big Five, they are against North Korean attaining atomic bomb. Do you know that in Democratic Republic of the Congo, they have uranium? That's where they get all their uranium to create these atomic bomb. So in other words, you have all the pieces, all the tools that you need to create an atomic bomb, but they make sure that none of you smarties can ever get to it. So if Africa has as much uranium as possible, can you imagine where the United States, where United Kingdom, where France, where Russia, where China is gonna say, hey, DRC, you cannot have an atomic bomb. Sorry, you are just not matured enough to have an atomic bomb yourself. No, you cannot have nuclear power. You cannot have nuclear resources. You are too young. You are too childish to know what to do with that. Can you see that happening? Yet, the God-given resources, it's being stolen out of the DRC, creating the mass destruction, the mass, the weapons of huge, massive destruction of the humanity. And that same weapon also gets to be brought back in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Rwanda, in Congo Brazzaville, in Angola, in Botswana, in all these nations, in Libya, in Egypt, in Cote d'Ivoire. Imagine all these nations currently having all kinds of wars going on. The same material plotted out Africa gets to be taken outside of Africa, gets to be refined, brought back in Africa, and killed African people. What's wrong with that picture, guys? And this is what we are saying. Something has to give, guys. In 2022, those 25 assassinations of heads of state, not to mention thousands of other assassinations, be it prime minister, be it ministers, be it members of the government, plenty of assassination has taken place throughout Africa. Plenty. All because the interest of the outsiders was not primary. So, even us, it's like we are now potentially on the target of assassination list. Why? Because we speaking out loud of the taboo conversation, of the things that should never be spoken of. But that's the truth. The moral compass that we have been taught every single day since we were children, I see it and it looks like this. It is completely out of whack. Completely out of position. And those entrusted to be the steward of our resources, be the steward of the management of the leadership of the African people, are the one being used today to destroy your well-being of today and tomorrow. How do you put forth President Kagame as the most incredible, amazing president that Africa has ever had, on the top of between 3 to 16 million deaths that he has to answer for? How do you get the best pick of him, young people, especially you young Africans? How do you reconcile the fact that there is a death of between 3 to 16 million people dead? And this man is one of the prime suspects. One of the prime suspects of those deaths. And you're still parading him as the best African president, the best Pan-Africanist that the entire continent of Africa has ever seen. I wonder how you actually get to say that in one sentence. But I have an answer for that, though. There's a thing here in the United States we call lobbying and lobbyists. So the lobbyists are these guys whose job is to look after the interest of any given government, any given organization that can pay high dollar, high euros to have a representative in these Western governments. A lobbyist has a job, or the purpose of the lobbyist is to be a representative, a positive representative of these people, these governments, these entities. So naturally, RPF, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, that happens to be currently governing Rwanda, use thousands and thousands, actually millions of dollars to whitewash their image so that every single leader within the government is well represented, is beautifully presented to you guys. And they ensure that all of you drink some Kool-Aid as to who they are. Such is what happened to President Kagame. His image has been whitewashed multiple times with some bleach. To most of you who have never had any audacity, any desire to dig beyond what was cooked and what was presented in front of your mouth and actually given to your mouth. How would you know the type of food that's being given to you when you have no saying, no knowledge of what that food is, where it's coming from, who cooked it, and why they're giving to you? and so kindly asking you to open your mouth and feeding you that. So young people, you got to wake up. If you did not know that we have 25 minimum assassination of African leaders, and those assassinations have a direct, and I repeat, a direct connection with the outsiders, in the interest of the outsiders, you need to get off that Kool-Aid. And you need to start seeking more. You need to start understanding what's happening to us as a people. Remember, a few weeks ago, I talked about the leadership slavery of Africa and African people. And then I talked about the social slavery of African people. And then I talked about the economic slavery of African people. The physical slavery, it's no longer visible. It was replaced by the mental slavery. At what point do you young people liberate yourselves? Start from your mental slavery, get rid of it. Then start seeking liberty from physical slavery that's also in front of you, in the form of leadership. Get rid of that slavery. In the form of economic, get rid of that slavery. In the social form, get rid of it. Self-determine your lives for today and tomorrow. This may sound so idealistic, as most of you keep on telling me. However, if you do not think of it, if you do not prioritize it as a part of your life, it is definitely going to be a dream. And you can never attain to something you never planned for it, something you never have any priority for, and certainly something that you have no knowledge nor desire to seek after. So young people, here at Afri Dominion, we want to challenge you. We want to challenge you to want the best of the best for your own people, for your own nations. Africa is wealthy, is stinking wealthy. We have every natural resource that you can imagine that's ever been discovered on planet Earth. We have it. And in most part, we are the leading provider of these natural resources to the outsider. Can you imagine how is it that the outsider have the knowledge of the natural resource that in some cases that they never had, and they happen to be controlling those same natural resources? How is it that they're the one doing it and you're not doing it, and you are the source of what they need? I have the answer. You don't have to go far. Most of you people were assassinated long time ago. Your knowledge stolen, taken outside of Africa, and still happening today. Instability that pushes African refugees outside of the nation, essentially pushing out the brain power, the knowledge that you're supposed to be using to dominate, to govern, to control, to master the natural resources of Africa, the leadership of Africa, everything that you need as African. It's being exported outside of Africa. Unless we stop it ourselves, the refugees issue will never stop, because wars will forever reign on the African continent, and all in the interest of the outsiders. You Africans are going to die with the bombs that you do not create, from the resources dug from within your own soil, all in the interest of the outsider. This is not hate communication. This is the truth of the matter. Check it out yourself. And we want us as a people to actually readjust our own moral compass. And we also want the world to readjust their own moral compass. If you claim to be goodwill of humanity, yet you're doing what you're doing today to Africa and African people, shame on you. And you cannot fool many of us today, as it has been done, the case, or as it has been the case for many years, for many decades. We see the truth today, and we are not afraid to speak the truth, nothing but the truth. Even if we may have inaccurate information, we come first and foremost and say, hey, you know what, we said this, we would like to openly recall this. This was not accurate. That's how we do it today. That's what we are doing today. So I am asking you, young people, young Africans, and you, older Africans, to release us as young people, to release our nations, to release every single one of these Africans dying because of your hand in the killing of Africans and African people, in African ways of lives. It's terrible that we are actually taking part in it ourselves, all because of a piece of bread, a piece of gold, a piece of money that can be printed. And you sell out your own people. You sell out your culture. You sell out your language. You sell out your nation for your own immediate and personal interest. That's treason, a higher treason. So I submit to you guys, if we work together and fight against every single one of our own people committing treason, and open courts to go after all the outsiders committing treason, or all outsiders who are killing us or having a hand in our own death or our own assassinations, we can turn around the ship. Who among you will be a part of these endeavors? This is the mission, guys. We want to put a stop to it. And we also want to put a stop to our own people perishing in front of us. We want to put a stop to the lies we are being fed every single day. Unless you want to be a part of the lying machinery, which I hope you're not, you need to take another stand. And you need to boldly stand on your own 2 feet and say, no, I will not be a part of this. There are many people who do not want to be a part of it, but you are afraid to proclaim that openly, publicly. But we have arrived to that season where you must get to, where you have to do it. African issues are going to be resolved by the Africans in the interest of the African people and not by the outsiders. Young people, you own issues at home, you own issues in your community, you own issues in your villages, you own issues in your own countries. You are going to have to take the lead in solving those situations yourselves before you invite an outsider, no matter how well wished that they do or they mean. There's no free lunch on planet Earth. If an outsider wants to give you a solution, be prepared to compensate for that solution. And if it is in the interest of the people, make sure that it is publicly known what the compensation is. That way you know that it's in the best interest of you, primarily. If you cannot achieve those agreements, you ought to say hell no. You ought to refuse, bluntly refuse. Because I told you when I started, 4 assassinations that took place in the United States, 4 presidential assassination specifically. Not one single African court has had a hand in the investigation, the ruling, the review. None of it. Today, with 25 plus assassinations of heads of states, African heads of states, these outside nations, they have the lead cases. They are telling you what happened, how it happened, who did what. Where were they when these assassinations were taking place? How is it that your own people do not have the same previewed information? However, these nations have the scoop, the juicy scoop of what has happened. Open your eyes, young people. Open your eyes. How is it that President Juvenal Habyarimana and President Cyprien Ntaryamira get to be assassinated, and now one single genuine investigation is launched today, to this very day? How is it that the prime suspect take the lead in the investigation of 2 sitting African presidents? Literally 2 sitting presidents get assassinated, and the prime suspect is given the privilege to run the investigation. Where have you heard of that in any of your countries? Where have you heard of that in any of your countries? And we claim to have democracy today. We claim to be working for the people today. We claim to have independent judiciary system. What type of judicial system would allow a perpetrator, a suspect, to have the lead in their own case? I mean, isn't that absurd? Can there be anything as stupid as that? I submit to you guys, it is up to us to set up courts, independent court, for the African people, for the African interest, to prosecute each and every one of the crimes being committed on the continent of Africa. Every nation must be on the lookout, must be looking at every other nation, especially those nations in trouble. We must not allow outsiders to take the lead in the affairs of African, especially in this 2022 and going forward. But young people, unless you're convinced that you can do something about that, the outsiders are going to forever keep the control, keep everything on the leash. All your affairs, all your dreams, all your desires, they are going to actually tell you what to do if you do not take charge of that. And I, for once, I can be honest with you, I got tired of it. It's unheard of. It's un-African. It's unpatriotic. If I don't see this in the United States, if I don't see this in France, if I don't see this in the United Kingdom, if I don't get to see this in Germany, if I don't get to see this in Russia, in China, why is it okay that I see it at home, in Rwanda, in Burundi, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Chad, in Togo, in Burkina Faso, in many, many countless countries in Africa? And it is all happening with your eyes open and my eyes open. What's wrong with that picture, guys? We gotta be able to change that, and we have to boldly change that image. It's really not our image as sons, daughters, and African descendants. You refuse to give your country your blood, and the dogs get to drink it for free. That's a translated African saying. That's like a Rwandese proverb. If you will not die for your country, the animals will drink your blood for free. So take action. You have but a very specific time frame on planet Earth. There's no reason why you should be afraid of death when death is your final destination. Let me repeat. There is no reason why you should be afraid of death when death is your final decision. It's inevitable. It's coming. And not one single person from any of these big 5 nations that I mentioned can add or take away a single second of your life. Not one single one of them has the power to take your life when is not your time to go. No matter how many bombs that they can put upon you, no matter how many bullets that they can shoot you, no matter how many assassination attempt. Unless you have to go, they cannot succeed. They have never given you this life. And the quicker you get to remember that, the faster you can actually go back in the right position that you ought to be in. So when I see all these amazing smart people who cannot speak on behalf of the voiceless, who cannot speak on behalf of their own family members, let alone, other people outside of their family members, outside of their own communities, it saddens me. When you see a man who cannot stand on behalf of his wife, his little girl, and get to see them, get to witness them being raped openly, and the man does nothing because he's afraid of getting killed by someone with a gun on top of his head, it buffers my head. If someone has the boldness of taking your wife, taking your daughter, taking your sister, bringing them in front of you, rape them in front of you so you can witness how I don't know if you can be an animal further than that. If that someone is using a little gun, a little knife or something, letting you know that you move, I'll kill you right now. I submit to you. I will give my blood to that nation, to my country. I get at the very least try, die trying, than to witness such a horrific act, such a memory that you would have to live with for the rest of your life. If any of you will not do that, it's a shame. So again, if I get right back on my original question to you guys, how much longer before we can protect ourselves? How much longer before we can protect ourselves? Do you know that you can come here in the United States with no papers? Even though most of you African, you cannot come in the United States without any papers. I'm talking about most like the people who have borders with the United States. They can sneak in with no papers. You Africans, you gotta fly in. It's too far. Suppose your visa have run out. You got no papers, no immigration status. The U.S. Army needs you. The Pentagon needs you. And you have a gift. You are strong. You have some sort of a gift that they need. Do you know you can have citizenship in 6 months in the United States? That's right. In only 6 months, you can become a United States citizen so long as you're doing the work they deem to be important, such as being in army, such as being in any of the branches of military here in the United States. However, for the rest of you, it takes you 10 years before you could become a citizen. So from 6 months to 10 years, what's wrong with that picture, guys? They're scouting every single day to see who amongst you are strong enough, smart enough, that you may be able to advance your own nation, your own continent. The quicker they find you, they take you out of your nation, they bring you here. Even if it means causing instability in your family, in your village, in your region, in your nation, just so that there can be a disruption of migration. Guys, we live in a funny world today. And you young people you need to wake up. So, how do we protect ourselves? I submit to you, learn who you are first and foremost. And decide to really embrace being a true citizen of your own nation, whichever nation you're in. But those of you sons, daughters, and African descendants, please have your own brick and be a part of the reconstruction of Africa. Be a part of the reconstructions of your respective countries of origin. I told you, I'm here in the United States. I'm a US citizen, but I was also born in Rwanda. I am talking about the issues related to Africa. As you can see, I'm very passionate about it. I still love the United States, but I also love Rwanda and I love Africa. And I'm not ashamed to say that what's happening in Africa, it's unheard of. It's immoral what's happening to the continent of Africa in the eyes of every single leader in the West, in Asia, in Australia, in South America. It's immoral what's happening. It's not a game to me when I see 16 million people being killed and not one single member of the United Nations has the audacity to say, you know what, we need to speak on behalf, we need to seek justice for these families. It's immoral to allow a prime suspect to come and sit amongst you for 28 years in the death of another head of states. Not one, two. It is immoral. And that's not an example I would hope, I would wish that our offspring can have. So young people, we're going to have to clean our own house. We got to clean our own house and houses. We got to clean our own governments. We got to clean every single sector of management of our nations. You are the one to do that. You do not have to be a genius at it. You have to have the heart for it. You do not have to have gone to the Cambridge University, to MIT, to American University, or any one of these amazing stellar universities out here in the West. You gotta have a love for your own country. And you gotta be willing to be a servant of your own people. Seek the interest of your own people, primarily. There is plenty to share with the rest of the world. But become a true citizen of your own countries. Seek justice. Seek the well-being of your own people. Let me end it there, guys. I am so grateful. As always, send us feedbacks. Shoot us a feedback. Go through our website, www.afridominion.com, or send us some feedbacks via our email, info@afridominion.com. Be sure to also give us a call. If you go to the website, you will find our information there. We would love to hear from you. Young Africans, sons, daughters, and African descendants, I ask you to really become who you are supposed to become in this season. Your refusal of doing it, it's also your forfeiture. You are going to forfeit the purpose by which you're supposed to have here today on planet Earth. On behalf of yourself, your family, your community, and your nation, So please do not forfeit your purpose. Your purpose is great, is important. It's the only one of a kind on planet Earth. So until we see you next time, guys, I want to wish you a beautiful, beautiful day. I am Freeman Singirankabo here on Afri Dominion Show. We'll see you tomorrow, and I love you guys. I truly love you, and we're doing this for the love of our own nations, for the love of our own motherland, Africa, for the love of our own family, for the love of our own community, for the love of our own nations, even the entire world. Until we see you next time, goodbye for now.